Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to Just a Few Acres Farm. Today we're going to look at what you can expect to get back in terms of beef from a Dexter cow. We picked up this beef last week from the butcher. There's 9 boxes here. We're going to unpack them all. We're going to look at the different cuts. We're going to weigh the different cuts so you know what you'll get back. This was a 5-year-old cow. She dressed at 480 pounds. She was a little bit heavier than a 24 to 28 month old steer that we would normally send. Those steers usually dress at 350 to 400 pounds. So we're going to unpack all these boxes, weigh all the different cuts, let you have a look at each one, and I'll talk a little bit about the best way to sell and cook each of the cuts. Please subscribe to our channel. It would mean a lot to me. We're trying to grow our channel. Liking and commenting helps us out as well as subscribing. So do all those things and I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is get a tare weight on one of these boxes, and I happen to have an empty one here so that I don't have to take everything out to weigh it. Tare weight on the box is 2 pounds. So we can go through and weigh the boxes one by one and get an idea of what the dress weight is compared to how much meat you actually get back. And the capacity on the scale is 40 pounds. We may go over it once in a while and have to take a few things out and weigh them separately. Okay, 28.26 pounds. And the box tare was 2 pounds. When you're handling beef that you get back and it's vacuum packed like this, you got to be careful, because the last thing you want to happen is the vacuum seal to break. Then it becomes either sale at a discount or home use. So we try to be careful. We leave the beef in the boxes until it's time to sell it, and then we just take it out of each box. We used to pack it separately into the freezers, but when you take it out of the box and put it into the freezer loose, there's more of a chance of breaking that package, so we don't do that anymore. $29.25. Okay, that's all 9 boxes. We'll do the math and see what our percentage is back versus dress weight. Okay, I added everything up. The beef total is 330.5 pounds. The animal dressed at 468. So that means we got 71% back of hanging weight, which is to be expected for beef, someplace between 65 and 75%, depending on how you have it cut. Now let's go through the boxes and see what we got and how much each thing weighs. First, we'll take care of the big one, ground beef, 3 boxes full. Let's weigh it out. 39.41. Ground beef from this animal totals 138 1/4 pounds. Really the bulk of the meat, and that's because partially we choose to have a lot of the what could be roasts made into ground beef. Things like bottom round, eye round, rump roast, all ground beef, top round roast. They sell better as ground beef than those roasts. In fact, the only true roasts that we have made are chuck roasts. Now we'll put this stuff to the side and look at the steaks. So here we have all the steaks laid out, and I'll go through them one by one. But as an overview, rib steaks and rib roasts, T-bone and porterhouse steaks, sirloin steaks, flank steaks, only 2 per animal, a hanging tender, 1 per animal. That's a really rare steak because it comes from inside the body cavity like a tenderloin would, and a couple packages of skirt steak. Then I also have some stew beef laid out here, which are trimmings from the carcass. I'll go through them one by one. First, let's talk about rib steaks and rib roasts. These are rib steaks. What is the steak version of prime rib? We get these cut 1.5 inches thick. This is the main difference we see between an older cow like this one and a young steer, is that you'll get bigger fat striations, and some of that fat will be tough, and this outer shell meat sometimes will be tough as well with an older cow, whereas with a steer it's always tender. Depending on how tough these are, we save these to eat them ourselves, or we'll take them to the market, but we'll try them first. These are rib roasts. We had one half of the animal cut into rib roasts. There were 3 of them, but we had one on New Year's, and it was delicious. I always recommend to people that these are good quick cooked steaks. They're nice and tender. Next in line, we've got T-bone steaks. Unlike rib steaks, these always stay tender in my experience, no matter the age of the Dexter animal. So we'll definitely sell these. Again, 1.5 inch thick, really nice fleck, fat, juiciness, marbling in these steaks. There's both porterhouse and T-bone mixed in here. And the difference between porterhouse and T-bone is, here's a T-bone. This side of the bone is loin. This side of the bone is the prized tenderloin, which could also be made into filet mignon. On a T-bone, that tenderloin is very small, less than, I think it's 1.25 inches. There's a rule about that, but I forget the exact dimension. On a porterhouse steak, here's a porterhouse. So it's facing the opposite direction, but this is the loin and this is the tenderloin. So on a porterhouse, you have greater than whatever it is, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches width of tenderloin here. To us, that means $1 difference in the steak price. Coming down the line, we got sirloins. We have these cut bone in, 1 inch thick. These are a really good flaky steak to cook quick. They stay nice and loose when you cook them quick. Again, they have good fat fleck in them. We have them cut bone in, which means sometimes you just get a little bone like this, and sometimes you get a giant bone like this. We tried having them cut boneless, but we lost so much meat to the trimmings that we decided it was better and more profitable to have them cut bone in. And we have the added bonus of, we eat the ones with the big bones like this, or we discount them a couple bucks a pound. Next we have the hanging tender, the one in an animal steak. It's a long grain steak like a flank steak would be. You can see the grain running this way off of a medial right here. And these are really delicious steaks. They need to be cooked quickly, and you only get 1 per animal. Flank steaks, usually 2 per animal. They were small for this. Sometimes they're about this long. Again, it's a long grain steak. Needs some expertise to cook, but the people who are looking for them usually know how to cook them. Skirt steaks, very few per animal. This is again a long grain steak. My butcher rolls it up and then slices it into these medallions. We only get a few, 2, 4, 6 of them per animal. And that does it for all the steaks that we had cut. When you make your choices as far as how to have the animal cut, you do have the choice, and this is the major one really for premium steaks, of going the route of either bone-in rib steaks and bone-in T-bones or porterhouses, or boneless ribeye steaks and boneless New York strip steaks and filet mignon or tenderloin. We choose to do these steaks bone-in most of the time because we capture the profit from the bone. And for more information on that, you can see my video on my 10 tips on how to best have Dexter beef cut for market up here. Next, I'll weigh these steaks so you can get an idea of the proportion of each. Stew meat, let's see, 13 pounds minus 2 pound box tear is 11 pounds of stew meat. This will vary widely depending on how the butcher that you use cuts and trims meat. Here though, 11 pounds. Skirt steaks, about 1.25 pounds. 2 flank steaks, 2.25 pounds. Of course, after talking about how we're careful the packages, here I am moving them all around. I don't normally do this. I'm doing this for you. Hanging tender, this is a fat one on this one. 2.25 pounds. 9, 10 sirloins. weighing 17.4 minus 2 pounds box tare is 15.4 pounds in sirloin steaks. T-bones and porterhouses, 1, 2, 13, 14, 15, and I sold 2 last weekend, so that would be 17 total. Weighing 15.8 pounds after the box tare plus the 2 I sold would be 17.8 pounds. Rib steaks and rib roasts. 1, 2, 8, plus 2 in the market freezer is 10. We had half the animal cut into rib steaks, half into rib roasts. So figure 20 rib steaks for an entire animal. And then the 2 rib roasts that we have left. 19 pounds after box tare plus the 2 that I have in the freezer. 23 pounds. Sometimes you'll get rib steaks from the end of the cut that look like this. They look more like a chuck roast than a rib steak. That circular muscle group changes into a more striated one. These are usually tough on an older cow. We eat these ourselves. By the way, the best way I've found to cook these rib steaks from older cows that could be tough is to put them in a sous vide water cooker for 48 hours and then sear them in a hot pan. The slow cook in the sous vide really tenderizes the meat and accentuates the beef flavor. They're really intense when they've cooked that long. This box is full of chuck roasts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I sold 2, so there's 11 chuck roasts plus 2 in the freezers would be 13 chuck roasts. Chuck roasts are great for slow cooking, braising, pot roast. They've become popular for smoking now, making chuck roasts, burn ends, and long slow smokes. They're also great for stew. If you're making a lot of stew, you can't beat chuck roast for stew. 28.5 pounds plus 6 pounds in the freezer is 34 pounds of chuck roast. It's getting full back here. Then we have 1 brisket. We get 2 per animal, but I already sold 1. These weigh 3 to 4 pounds each. The butcher keeps a decent amount of fat on them to keep them moist. Again, these are slow cooked. They can be corned and made into corned beef. They can be smoked. Or I had a customer tell me that they just boiled theirs without corning them and it turned out great. Lots of different uses for brisket. 5.5 pounds times 2 would be 11 pounds in brisket. Now we have all the miscellaneous bits. We've got tallow, three bags of tallow, 2 bags of broth bones, which are excellent for making bone broth. They're mostly marrow bones. We have a box full of short ribs and soup bones. Short ribs and soup bones. Short ribs, again, on an older animal tend to be a little bit fattier than they would on a younger animal. These have really intense beef flavor, but they need to be slow cooked. Either braised in the oven, long and slow in a smoker, till they just fall apart, and they have, just as I said, intense beef flavor. These are soup bones or shanks. They're cut from the lower part of the leg. There's bone in the middle, and then you get quite a bit of meat. Excellent for soup, as the name says. I'll weigh these up and let you know how much we get of each. And the last box is organ meat and oxtail. Oxtail, again, excellent for soup. You only get 1 per animal. Kidneys, which we usually sell to folks who raw feed to their dogs. Oops. 1 heart. 1 tongue. And I would say about 7 pounds of liver. We have them cut into 1 pound packs. All this stuff sells well, all these organ meats. Let's weigh up the tallow or suet. Again, she was an older cow and fatter than a steer would be, so we got a little bit more back. Wow, 23.6 pounds of suet. The suet sells very slowly. If we have an overage, we barter it with one of the soap makers at market and get soap back. Sometimes hunters will come by and ask for it. So it can sit for a fair amount of time, but eventually we find a use for it. Now, broth bones. I wish we got more of these back because these sell really well. 9 1/4 pounds. Soup bones and short ribs. Soup bones, which I already sold a couple of, so we'll guesstimate on what's missing. Aha! 11 1/2 pounds, and I sold about 2 pounds, so that would be 13 1/2 pounds of soup bones. Short ribs. Again, I sold a couple packs of these. 8 1/2 pounds plus about 7 pounds would be 15 1/2 pounds of short ribs. There you have it. All the beef that comes back from a Dexter cow spread out to sea. I'm going to have a heck of a time packing it all back up. Thanks for watching this video. I know what I'm going to be doing tonight. It's Hillary's birthday today, and we're having T-bone steaks for dinner. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.